The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this evening to address the crisis that's ongoing now in Yugoslavia. For a war to be moral, we must have a reason to go in. National defense is a moral justification. If we are attacked, it is a moral war. Getting involved in any other kind of war is not considered to be moral. A legal war in this country is one that is declared by the Congress. Any other war is illegal. The war in Yugoslavia, now pursued by our administration and with NATO, is both immoral and illegal, and it should not be pursued. We will be soon voting on an appropriation, probably next week. There may be a request for $5 billion to pursue the war in Yugoslavia. I do not believe that we should continue to finance a war that is both immoral and illegal. It is said that we're in Yugoslavia to stop ethnic cleansing, but it is very clear that the goal of the NATO forces is to set up an ethnic state. It's totally contradictory. There is a civil war, and it's horrible, going on in Yugoslavia today. But this is no justification for outsiders, and especially the United States of America, to become involved without the proper proceedings. I believe that our colleague, Mr. Campbell from California, deserves to be complimented because he is making a determined effort to put the burden on the members of Congress to vote one way or the other. Since World War II, we have fought numerous wars, and they have never been fought with the declaration of war. And it is precisely for that reason, because they have not been fought for truly national security reasons, that we have not won these wars. If a war is worth fighting, it's worth declaring, and it's worth winning. I am delighted that this effort is being made by Mr. Campbell and others here in the Congress, because for so long, for 50 years now, we have permitted our presidents to casually and carelessly involve our troops overseas. So I see this trend as putting more pressure on the Congress to respond to their responsibilities. I think this is a very, very good move and going in the right direction. It has been asked, why in the world might we be there if it isn't a concern for the refugees? Because obviously we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of refugees in many, many places around the world. We don't go to Rwanda to rescue the refugees. We didn't go into Yugoslavia to rescue the Serbian refugees when they were being routed from Bosnia and Croatia. But all of a sudden, the refugees seem to have an importance. Most people know why we went to the Persian Gulf. It wasn't because we were attacked. It was because of a financial, commercial interest, oil. But what is the interest in this area, in Yugoslavia? I'm not sure exactly what it is. There's been a lot of postulations about this, but I am not convinced that it is all of a sudden the concern for the refugees. Yesterday in the Washington Post, an interesting article occurred on this subject, but it wasn't in the news section. It was in the business section. There was a headline yesterday in the Washington Post that said, "Count corporate America among NATO's staunchest allies." Very interesting article, because it goes on to explain why so many corporations have an intense interest in making sure that the credibility of NATO is maintained. And they go on to explain that it's not just the arms manufacturer, but the technology people who expect to sell weapons in Eastern Europe, in Yugoslavia, and they're very interested in making use of the NATO forces to make sure that their interests are protected. I think this is not the reason for us to go to war. There is talk now of calling up all our reserves, or many of our reserves. At the same time, there is hints now that there may be the institution of the draft. So this is a major problem that this country is facing, the world is facing, And up until now, we, the Congress, have not spoken. On February 9th of this year, I introduced a bill that would have prohibited this by prohibiting any funds being spent on a war in Yugoslavia. I say it's too bad we hadn't passed that legislation a long time ago.
The gentleman's time has expired.